So the cat's out of the bag now. Sony's hottest new TV is a QD-OLED TV using the latest QD-OLED panel. Very exciting. But the naming convention might seem a little confusing to anyone who follows TVs, let alone anyone just starting to research TVs. And then toss in the new Bravia 5 mini LED and Sony's plans to unleash an RGB mini LED TV in 2026. And I would totally understand. You might get even more perplexed. But don't worry, I'm gonna help you step back and understand not just Sony's latest TV moves, but its whole master plan. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and can we just talk for a second? It has been so hard to sit on this information for so long. I guess it's been, about 5 weeks since I hauled off to Tokyo, along with a bunch of other journalists and creators, not just to see the new TVs, but to learn about how making movies for the theater translates to watching them at home, as well as how making content meant to be viewed at home is looking and sounding more cinematic than ever. But then, there's the new TV stuff too. So let's start with the new TVs. We now have a Bravia 5. That's the street name. The model number will be something like 65XR50 or 55XR50. It's the XR50 that matters. The number in front is usually just the size of the TV in inches. Anyway, if we work our way up Sony's TV lineup, we start with the Bravia 3. This is Sony's most basic TV. It's got a 60 Hz panel, it's direct lit LED, so no local dimming. It gets fairly bright, about 500 nits or so in test patterns, but what really sets it apart and also makes it a bit more expensive than the competition is its processing. And one more thing that I'm gonna tell you about that Sony does to all of its TVs. Stick around because I'm telling you, you don't want to miss that part. Anyway, the Bravia 3 doesn't have great contrast because of its always-on backlight, which makes its LCD panel look a bit gray where it should be black. But if you're a Sony fan who wants an inexpensive TV, the Bravia 3 is it. Note, the Bravia 3 is a carryover from 2024. Stepping up one notch, we now have the new Bravia 5. And on paper at least, it looks like a pretty big step up. It's now Sony's least expensive TV with mini LED backlighting and full array local dimming. So if you want an immediate improvement in contrast and color, you want to go up to the Bravia 5. Now, not gonna lie, I lost my notepad from the trip, so I'm going from memory and I just can't recall as I'm recording this video. In other words, Sony hasn't sent specs yet, but I can't remember exactly whether the Bravia 5 has a 120 Hertz panel. I think it does, but I do recall that it supports variable refresh rate, Dolby Vision, game mode, and like all that good stuff. Obviously, I also haven't been able to measure it, but I'm gonna wager a guess that it's gonna do somewhere in the, I don't know, maybe 1300 to 1500 at best, peak brightness in nits. I do remember thinking it was brighter than I expected for its tier. I think what's important though is that it will make a lot of folks happy with the brightness for the price of a Sony. I think the Bravia 5 is for someone who wants better contrast and more HDR punch than the Bravia 3 can deliver, or for someone who plans to do a fair bit of console gaming. Pricing wasn't available when I recorded this video, but we'll have all the pricing info down in the description, so please check there. Anyway, Bravia 5, new for 2025, and I think Sony is pretty hopeful that this TV is gonna help get its brand into more homes. Next up in the line is the Bravia 7, a TV with which enthusiasts are already well familiar. Frankly, if the Bravia 9 didn't exist, the Bravia 7 could easily be a mini LED flagship TV. It does about 2000 nits, which puts it on the same level as the new Samsung QN90F that we just talked about in a recent video. It achieves about the same color gamut. It is very accurate out of the box in professional mode and is otherwise just a super clean TV. My only complaint with the Bravia 7 when I reviewed it was with its off-angle viewing, where the contrast and color saturation drops a little bit, and also my concern that its anti-glare wasn't powerful enough, although a lot of you came to the comments to say it's just fine. All told though, a stellar TV, the Bravia 7. And this is also a carryover model from 2024. Starting to see a pattern? Well, let's continue that pattern with a slight twist, okay? Above the Bravia 7, we had the Bravia 8, a WRGB OLED TV that competed against the likes of LG's C-Series OLEDs. And for the time being, we still have that Bravia 8 TV. You'll be able to buy the standard Bravia 8 at a great price in 55, 65, and 77 inches. However, we now have the new Bravia 8 Mark II. Now, this is where I understand if folks get a little confused. You have to understand, though, that Sony's flagship premium OLED, which was once the A95L, doesn't really fit into this new Bravia numeral naming convention. Also, although many of us may feel like Sony's stunning new QD-OLED TV is the flagship of Sony's TV lineup, Sony, like Samsung, does not see its best OLED TV as its flagship. Sony, for now, sees the Bravia 9 as its top-tier model. So for that reason alone, this new QD-OLED TV could not be the Bravia 10. That would suggest it was above the flagship Bravia 9. So they made it the Bravia 8 OLED Mark II, delineating that it's QD-OLED and the new hotness. I will be the first to admit it's not a tidy, sleek, smooth way to go as naming conventions go, but it does work. I think this TV is gonna get so much buzz that Sony could have called it whatever they wanted and it would probably stick. But the other reason it could never be called the Bravia 10, well, I'm getting to that. First, we get to the next step up, which is the Bravia 9, a carryover, again, from 2024. And while I would argue that the carryover model thing already makes sense, even if we as enthusiasts find it less exciting than a new model number with marginally and frankly not meaningful new performance specs, the fact is carrying over the Bravia 9 to 2025 just makes a ton of sense. First, like the A95L did, the Bravia 9 got kind of a late in the year launch for some markets, so it's still pretty new. And also, it is such an awesome TV that there's really no reason to replace it. I mean, the Bravia 9 has earned a great reputation already as being the best mini LED TV that you can buy. And Sony is confident it's gonna stay that way for a while. So why replace something that's already winning? So I personally think that carrying over the Bravia 9 made sense, especially with what could be the Bravia 10 coming in 2026. Because if Sony sticks to this product refresh cycle, we should see a new Bravia 3, a new Bravia 7, maybe even a new Bravia 9, and hopefully an all-new Bravia 10 edition in 2026, next year. That's where our RGB mini LED comes in, and that would be the new. That would be the flagship to end all flagships. But wait, hold on a second. I just thought of something. What if this new RGB mini LED TV actually came out as the Bravia 11? I mean, look at the current lineup. The 3, 5, 7, and 9 are all LCD TVs. Odd numbers. The even numbers, granted just 2 of them right now, are OLEDs. And we know that other brands have 11s as their flagship. I don't know, maybe we skip 10 and go straight to 11. Honestly, it doesn't really matter, but it's kind of fun to think about and predict. What do you think Sony's gonna do? Drop a comment now. But if we wanna wrap this up in a pretty present, we have Bravia 3 entry-level LED TV. Then we have the Bravia 5, least expensive Sony mini LED. The Bravia 7, an outstanding mini LED TV. The Bravia 8, holdover WRGB OLED, and the only way, by the way, to get a 77-inch OLED from Sony. And then the Bravia 8 Mark II, the new hotness and likely to be one of my favorite TVs ever. Then we have the Bravia 9, still the best mini LED TV we've tested, with the promise of an RGB mini LED coming next year. Possibly we call that the Bravia 10, maybe we call it the Bravia 11. We shall see. And that, my friends, is a strong lineup. And the common denominator here, Sony's processing, which attempts to bring home exactly what creators want you to see. Every little decision Sony XR processors make is centered around that goal. Love it or leave it. And honestly, that makes sense because of all the TV brands out there, only Sony is operating on the opposite side of the content creation pipeline, making the cinema cameras and the micro LED background walls and the mastering monitors that are used on location, as well as in the editing and color grading bays. But there's one more thing Sony showed me that finally explains why it is Sony charges a bit of a Sony tax. Now, to be sure, not every single Sony TV has a perfectly clean panel. There will be variances because that's how manufacturing is. But I've been talking for years about how Sony's TVs, unit for unit, tend to be cleaner and more uniform than the competition. And now we know a little bit about why, because Sony showed us an insanely impressive demonstration while I was out in Tokyo. Unfortunately, we were not able to record this, so I guess you'll have to use your imagination. But turns out, Sony has its TVs roll through a screen uniformity station on its production lines. And here, a camera shoots the TV while the TV is displaying a gray test pattern. That gray test pattern is designed to show where there might be uniformity issues. You might get darker gray splotches or lighter gray splotches, contributing to something that we call the dirty screen effect, where it looks like your screen is dirty, even though it's really just color and brightness variances coming from that LCD panel. Well, once Sony's camera has detected where those uniformity issues are, be they splotches or, vertical lines, it then goes after calibrating them out. And it is amazing. So imagine a panel had a dark gray spot in the middle left section of the screen. The calibration that gets done would lighten that section up to make it appear exactly the same as the rest of the screen, like it's not even there. Now, Sony proved to us this was real by putting tinted film on the screen. So parts of the screen looked green to us and parts of it looked reddish due to this film. After the calibration, the screen looked to our eyes to be completely uniformly gray. It was amazing. But it could have been faked, right? So to show us that it was not, we were allowed to lift the film to see that the color of the screen itself under those tint films had been changed so that the resulting color after going through the film was perfectly gray. What we saw under the film was like an orange box or a green box, but through the film, it was as if the film wasn't even there. It was crazy. So this calibration process raises the bar for screen uniformity on Sony TVs. And not just the super premium models get it. All of Sony's Bravia TVs do, even the Bravia 3s. Honestly, it wasn't just a cool demo. It was a reminder about the little things that Sony has been doing for years to make their TVs just a little bit better, to make sure they maintain that legendary look and quality. It takes more time and costs more money, which is why we'll pay more for a Sony. But looking at Sony's TV lineup now and knowing where it is going in the future, I personally feel it is totally worth it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. What do you think of Sony's overall strategy, and which Sony TV are you most excited about? Let us know down in the comments. Please click that thumbs up button if you like this video. Subscribe if you're down to see more. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. Sony! All right, we're done.